It is a distinct honor to have Vice President Sharon Basso and Associate Vice President, Dean of Students, Dianna D.T. Turner Graves, class of 98. My name is Evan Rutter. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Alumni and Parent Engagement at the college, and I'm just here to welcome everyone and introduce our two speakers. So today, we're talking about student health and wellness, a discussion with our two leaders in the Dean of Students office. These current times bring with them a variety of challenges, and the Dean of Students office is committed to supporting students in all ways possible. So we have Vice President for Student Affairs, Sharon Basso, and Associate VP and Dean of Students, Dianna Graves, to discuss the many resources students can utilize for physical and mental well-being, including suggestions and guidance on behaviors and habits that promote wellness for our students. Please do participate. Please do ask questions. Please insert things into the chat, good or bad, things that you need to help support your students or things that you think we can do a little bit better on. Do feel free to throw it in the chat, and also share what has worked for you and for your students during these unusual times. Sharon, thanks for being here. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Evan, and hello, everyone. Thank you very much. Great to see all the faces and the names and locations in the chat. Wanted to just kind of frame today for you and let you know that we are going to do exactly what Evan said. We're going to provide you information about our approach here for students on our campus around health and well-being, setting that stage for a positive experience, but also valuing that, as well as providing resources and support for students when they find that they need additional help. But wanted to make sure you heard from us both lenses of that, right? One is providing support and resources when problems emerge, but also on the front end is creating this ethos of a healthy, well campus environment so that everyone is kind of doing that all the time and kind of doing both ends of that. So wanted to make sure we'll provide you, DT is going to go through some information for you and set the stage, and then we'll make sure that we leave at least probably half of the time for just discussion and questions, make sure we get to what's on your mind. So for starters, I kind of want to do a little bit of grounding with this group to say, when you read the description of the program and you signed up for it, and since that time and as you logged in today, what was on your mind around what you are hoping to hear about today, just so we get a sense of what's in the room as we start this session. So feel free in the chat just to jot some quick notes like, want to hear about this, or I have questions about that, or just general want to learn more, but like whatever's on your mind and no pressure. But if it's things that we're not going to talk about, we might have some technical difficulties and just lose our screen footage for a bit and just go rebuild. No, but I'm sure we're going to be covering whatever it is that you need to know, but this will help us get a sense of that. So feel free to just drop in the chat any quick comments about when you think about health and wellness. What is it that's on your mind? Hopes, fears, things you want to hear about. Yep. Outreach programs. Thanks, Jeff. Yep, we'll talk about that. Yes, Kirsten, of course. What's a new, yes, that's a great point, Ann. What's a new semester possibly going to look like? And what is that new normal around health and well-being for sure? Okay. Feel free to keep, as things strike you, to keep putting them in the chat. I'll be tracking that as well. And we'll make sure at the end of DT's information that we get back to those points, but I think we're on that same page. So thank you so much. We'll talk again soon. Go DT.
All right, thanks so much. Is everybody able to see the screen? So it should say Dean of Students on there. All right, perfect, good. So wanted to just start off by giving you a sense of why this conversation is important in college or among college students. It will not come as a surprise, I'm sure, to all of you that between the ages of 18 and 24, these are some of the leading issues that students identify or people identify as being of concern in their own world. So this was a survey done in 2019, about 54,000 undergraduates responded. And I imagine that many of these, certainly these top three are probably, or even top four, are things that you've seen among either your student or your students' peers. So stress, anxiety, not sleeping as much as they probably should, or thinking about depression. And so in our framework, what we're really trying to do is think about this from the responsive end. So as students have issues, we want to be really responsive, really open to that. We want to provide the right resources to get them supported, but we also want to really focus on the upstream elements of this. And as we are doing it, we're really trying to keep the student front and center in that conversation. So we're trying to understand the drivers of well-being concerns and then helping to enable our students to take agency and ownership of their own health and well-being. What are the behavioral shifts they can be making to be their best? What does it look like when they're their best? Sometimes they don't even know really what kind of words and things to put around that. And as we're doing it, we're thinking about these various dimensions of health and well-being, and we're trying to be really attentive to the diversity of experiences that students bring to the table. So everything from race, trauma, family situations, your family histories, your religious background, for example, can impact how you think about your own health and well-being, and certainly in this college experience. And so we try to be very attentive to that in the way that we design our programs. So what I wanted to do is talk a little bit about what does that mean? So when we think about sort of the responsiveness to the downstream things that we're seeing, what does that look like? So when students are on campus, in terms of their physical health and well-being, we have the Tranquility Student Health Services Center. This is an on-campus clinic where you can go to do basically anything you could do in an urgent care. So you can walk in and get, you know, throat culture, get x-rays, you can get simple prescriptions filled while you're there. When we are off campus, we've partnered with a group called, it's actually called Timely MD, but we've branded it as 7C Health for our campuses. And so any student 24/7 has access to a live physician or other licensed medical professional. So it could be a counselor or a psychiatrist if they need somebody, where they can get in and do telehealth, and they can get prescriptions through that. They can get simple diagnostics. They can get referrals through that process. So if the physician feels like they need a amplified level of care, then they can direct them to go to the hospital or an emergency room. But we're really happy with that partnership, and that 24/7 access has ended up being really important, so students can access help across the globe during this pandemic situation. Some of our other responsive resources. So we have the Monsour Counseling and Psychological Services Center. Monsour, even though it's a physical space, is still doing care and services for students while we're virtual. So students can call. If they're in California, they can actually do ongoing therapy with MCAPs. If they are outside of the state, they can call for crisis appointments and also short-term referral appointments. So they can come in, kind of get an assessment of what their needs are, and then that Monsour counselor can help them connect in with resources in their home state or their home country, wherever they're living. We also do supplemental counseling in our Dean of Students office. So we're able to get students connected in with practitioners in whatever their local area is. And then we have supplemental counselors actually within our office who can also do some of that work with students ongoing. So really trying to think about the times that work best for students, how we can, be very attentive to their academic schedules and their co-curricular commitments, and still getting them the kinds of support they need. I think one of our most powerful resources at our campus is called case management. And case management is really, the way you can kind of think about it is the central player who does the connection stuff. So they're the person who reaches out and connects all the dots for a student who maybe needs a range of different kinds of support. So for example, a student could come in and say, I'm just struggling. They may not even really have a lot of words for it. I don't feel particularly motivated, or I'm a little bit lonely, or I'm homesick, you name it. It could be any kind of issue. And Jess Nielsen, who's the case manager in our office, is the person then tasked with helping that student get to the bottom of what's going on for them, and then helping them think about what are those right resources and connection points to support you in getting through this particular challenge. So that could be connecting you in with an academic support person, or it might mean, let's get on the phone together with your therapist from home and think about what tools work best for you so that you can communicate those to your friends, for example, if they are trying to figure out how to best support you. It might be help with nutrition. It might be, thinking about what kind of communication plan you want in place with your family. And so Jess's job is to kind of keep all of those resources in place and to make sure that the student is maximizing those resources, and then slowly transitioning to where they're feeling like they have a lot more understanding, a deeper understanding of what resources they need and which ones they can kind of wean off of over time. This is one example just of how case management can make a difference. So this is a thank you note actually from a student that went to Jess, and it was really focused. This poor student had a lot going on. He had just transitioned home for the pandemic, had a mom with some pretty significant health challenges, a sister who was really struggling with some mental health stuff. And he was really feeling torn, and he was kind of like the central support person in this family, but also trying to balance everything else going on for him. And so, you know, it was again one of those situations where it wasn't to solve his issues, but rather to get him connected in with the right folks who are going to be able to help him think about his own behavioral shifts and how he could overcome those challenges. And he really was able to turn it around. He gave a lot of credit to our office, but he, you know, took ownership of that, and we just sort of stewarded that process. Okay, so the upstream, and what I'm talking about with upstream is what is going on here. You know, why are college students feeling so much stress and anxiety, or why are they feeling overwhelmed at times, and how do we counter that? So we have a number of ways that we're trying to collect that data on our campus to really understand what's going on for students. We take pretty careful notes. We have a case management system where we're able to capture notes across our staff. So if I've worked with a student and maybe I've noticed that they're feeling a little bit anxious about something, then I put that in the notes. And then if Sharon later has an interaction with a faculty member who says, you know, so-and-so hasn't been coming to my class, she's able to go into our system and find and go, oh, wow, DT talked to that student last week and there's some stuff going on there. So we are able to connect those dots. We're tracking things like low grade notices. So if a student is struggling or maybe not attending class, we get flagged on that. We're able to meet together. It's a very team-oriented process where we bring together actually members of our staff weekly just to connect the dots, to make sure that we're not losing touch with any one person, and that everybody that we're worried about has ongoing collaborative exchanges in our office, so that we're really thinking about the best strategy to support those students. And we're collecting this data on an ongoing timeline. So we have found really that there are three very important drivers of well-being on our campus. One is community. So the more connected and that sense of belonging that students feel, the better they tend to do overall. So how do we create community? A lot of these things on the screen you're going to be familiar with, and I'm not going to go through them point by point. I'll highlight a few at the end. But first year guides, you know, how we get our first year students connected with our upper class students right out of the gate is very important. We do a lot of work around how to think about mental health. So QPR is a suicide prevention program where students are taught how to ask questions of people that they're concerned about, and how to engage in that conversation rather than just sort of, you know, ignoring it and not being sure what to do. How to refer up is a part of that program. We think a lot about orientation, how we do our care center programming to draw in students from all different identities to really feel that sense of belonging on our campus. The RAs, our student government. So really just trying to think about connection. And the next one is purpose. So we know that when students feel purposeful, when they feel like they have meaning in their lives, or that they're able to make meaning of the things going on in their lives, they tend to do better. They do better academically, and they do better socially as well. So we've developed a number of different programs and interventions to help develop purpose, or to help students kind of put words on what it is they believe deeply in and that they're passionate about. Some of these, again, I'll go into a little bit more detail, but the idea here is that we are trying to steward this process where students are getting to know themselves really well. And then in that process, trying to think about, so who do I want to become and what does that mean? So we'll have students, for example, come in and say, you know, I want to be a doctor. And we have all the resources in place to guide that student. Okay, perfect. Here are the classes you're going to need to take. Here are the co-curriculars you might want to explore. Here are some connection points with doctors that you could shadow. We really help them do all of that. But the key question that we ask on the front end is why? Like, why do you want to be a doctor, right? Like, what is it about that field that is meaningful to you? How do you create that sense of, yeah, this is why, this is the sort of life I'm trying to carve out, or these are the sorts of values that I hold dear. And that's how we try to then direct them, even in our career services outreach. So you'll see Soul Center for Student Opportunity is on the purpose slide, because we're trying to help students not just get jobs, but get jobs that they feel are of value in the world. And then the third really like pillar of this program then is play. So, you know, our students tend to come in, you know them, right? They're very ambitious, they're very focused, they work hard, and they don't always relax, or when they relax, we worry, right? We don't want them to relax with alcohol. We don't want them to relax by, you know, going out and just doing things that are crazy. We want them to relax by thinking about what makes me really happy. What makes me feel healthy? Like when I thrive, what does that look like? And play is an important part of that. So this is a picture of a student in Janie's kitchen. It's a kitchen that we have on campus, and he started a cooking club basically with some friends, and he's making homemade pasta, and it's really amazing. In this COVID environment, we've had to move a lot of that online. So we've had students signing up for cooking classes, for example, where they're mailed the supplies, and then they get on together and they're doing this activity. Lots of recreation and fitness stuff is still available online to families as well. So you can get on and sign up for a class and do those regularly. We do things like Coffee 101 and Tea 101. So again, you're mailed a package with all of the coffee things, and then or tea, and then you get on with an expert and they take you through the whole process and the cultural implications and everything else within it. But you're doing that in community, and it's fun and it's relaxed and it's informal. We have a mystery box program, which has nothing to do with Zoom. So students can receive packages in the mail that have all different kinds of themes. So succulent plants or baking box. There was a slime box that 300 students signed up for a couple of weeks ago. And so there's a whole range of things that they can just get their hands on and immerse without being locked onto their computer screen. And then we have this funding. So funding means you can write in, we have an email that goes out at the start of every other Sunday, outlines all the various engagement activities. And then there's at the bottom, it says, also, if you have an activity you want to do that we're not thinking about, here's where you sign up for a meeting. So they can get on with our Associate Dean for Student Engagement and make a pitch, and then they can get money and they can do their pitch so that they're able to, you know, stay connected and pursue the things that make them feel really happy. So these are a couple of the programs I just thought might be worth highlighting, especially as we are heading into this midterm season, and you're probably hearing a lot about I have papers due, and you know, there's a lot of kind of stress in the world right now for our students. The Best Life Strategies program is designed to help students cultivate those skills that we know make them better students. So time management, task initiation, how to overcome procrastination, test anxiety, those sorts of programs. And so this is just an example of one of the social media advertisements that went out. And this is how they're designed. So there's 10 sessions in a series, and they're very short. So a student can get on, and within 25 minutes, the problem is identified, they're taught a skill, they practice the skill, and they discuss the skill in the group. And then the following time, and then there's a little post survey that they're showing how they've utilized that skill in the course of the next week. When they come back to the next session, then they debrief it, right? So there's a review of that skill, then they learn a new one. And so there's this sort of cumulative effect over time that the students are able to really practice. It's not just like talking about feeling good, it's learning how to do the work. How do you do that kind of thing? And here's some examples of how that's going. So this is just the fall semester, this past semester. We had about 70 unique participants. So a lot of students coming more than once, as you can tell. And some of the quotes, I mean, the question was really, what are the takeaways? You know, what did you get out of this, if anything? And they're talking about things like mindfulness. Those are words that are important, right? I know how to be present. I'm thinking about how to manage my emotions. Situational coping is really important when you're in college. You know, when a challenge is thrown your way, do you know what to do with it? And so we're trying to teach them to understand what's going on for them, and then also to have tools to sort of counter those big challenges. So this program's been a lot of fun to see in action, and some of these cohorts have just stayed really, really tight. So that's been a bonus of that. One of our other programs is called Success Consultants. So these are student leaders who are trained in all of these various skills. So again, time management, organization, exam prep, all of those sorts of things. In the fall, we had 320 appointments. A lot of those were first-year students, but you can see that the usage is actually spread out across the class years. And we asked students how it went. So did you learn the tools? And you can see the numbers here, right? So overwhelmingly positive, 94%, 99%. And this is 275 respondents. So these programs are going really well. Here's some of the quotes, the takeaways from this, the things that students are getting out of this. So you'll see again, this is very practical. You know, I'm thinking about my sleeping habits, like they're making behavioral changes. I'm thinking about time management. I just got this really cool template on how to better organize and be productive, and I'm going to share that one with my friends. I'm getting more comfortable reaching out to my faculty. I mean, these are things that you have to learn and practice, and that's what this program is designed to do. Here's just a picture of our success consultants because they're so cute and fun. All right, last program I just wanted to describe is Whoop. So Whoop is a wrist strap. So you wear it on your wrist. You can see Mitchell is one of our seniors here, and he's got a Whoop strap on. And what the strap is doing is actually tracking for physiological markers. So looking at heart rate variability, resting heart rate, sleep, and respiratory rate over time. So we piloted this with 31 students last semester. We trained the success consultants extensively in how to use it and how to interpret the data so that they could work with students one-on-one who wanted to have a better idea of what the data were saying. All of the students in the pilot also trained with the professional staff at Whoop to really deeply understand what all of these markers were suggesting. And one of the things that they were really focused on, this student cohort, was sleep. They had identified that they were just not getting enough sleep, and the Whoop band was reinforcing that their sleep efficiency was really, really poor. And in the course of the pilot over the semester, they went from 55% to 89% sleep efficiency. And they're really fired up about that. You know, our students are the kinds of students who like to understand the why and the how. And if they buy in, they're all in. Like, they're going to practice and get better at it, which is really exciting. So we're just trying to be very transparent. You know, if your sleep matters, if you're not sleeping well, here are some things you can do to fix that, and some ways to measure whether or not it's working. Okay, last slide, and then just want to hear from you. Basically, you know, tips for parents. So this is tricky when you are either they're here or when they're with you. I mean, it's tricky either way. And so would just really encourage you to listen carefully. You know, what are they actually saying? So I'm so stressed out. Well, maybe dig into that a little bit more. You know, what are those drivers for you of the stress right now? Like, what are those key things that just are keeping you up at night? Making some mistakes is really helpful. So try not to save them from all of those things. One of the challenges I know a lot of first-year parents have told us they're facing right now is their students are not waking up to go to class. And it's all they can do to not go knock on that door and be like, don't you have a 9 o'clock? And wake them up. But it doesn't serve them well to do that, right? They need to learn how to do this on their own. And so trying to find ways to observe that behavior back to them without solving that issue by waking them up all the time. And that goes for all kinds of other sorts of behaviors. Helping them to think more about the process, you know, learning as a reciprocal venture, like how you get in there and the give and take of the process rather than the transaction of a grade can really help kind of ease some of that stress and the pressure that they feel. Think about pre-existing conditions. So if you have a student that already has a diagnosis that you know impacts their ability to be successful, remind them to tell us that. You know, reach out to the Dean of Students office and let them know about the ADHD or the other stuff that's going on for you, because that really helps us know how best to support them. And it gives them, again, that agency in how to do that. And then if you have a student you're really worried about, you know, you just feel like they're not connected or your sense is that they're really struggling and you don't know what to do with that, reach out to us. Sharon and I are available all the time. Our email is right here, and we will be back in touch with you and try to do some more kind of directed assistance. So, all right, that's it for slides. And I've not been monitoring the chat at all, Sharon, so maybe we can take some questions if they're in there, and if others just want to raise your hand and speak, we're a nice small group, so that will work too.
Yes, thank you. So there were comments. Jeff has a question. Are you finding that they want an ear to listen versus someone to help solve a problem? Yeah, and I think that I think it's a yes and no. I think it's a relearning, right? Up till this point in their life, sometimes students have received that kind of transactional, here's what's going on, tell me what to do, from all kinds of folks, teachers, coaches, all that sort of thing. And we're trying to reframe that, not because we don't want to give them an immediate answer, but because we want them to learn how to consider all the options and make those decisions with support. So what we try to do with them is, yes, I think that they learn then, Jeff, that they really kind of want an ear, sometimes to just share that. But what we try to do is use a kind of a coaching model throughout all of the work we do with students when they come in with a presenting thing. I don't know if I should drop this class. Well, let's talk that through. What's going on in that class? What do you think your options are? What do you have that discussion? And then more times than not, they get to yeah, I think I know what I should do now, because it's their journey. Now, obviously, we're not going to sit and watch them make a fatal flaw, so to speak, with respect to a decision without thinking it through. But it's that coaching around, self-agency, self-authorship, that kind of thing, and referring and that sort of thing. So I think many times they do want an ear. I think they want to know that they're not the only ones in this virtual environment. It's very weird for first-year students, in particular, because they haven't had that community in-person sense yet. So they haven't had that, let me run across the hall and ask this person what they think with a peer. They're doing that all online. So yeah, that's kind of, I think an ear helps for sure. And they do that for each other very well too. Anne is saying, my son is reporting that he's truly missing the interaction with professors. Yes, 100%, Anne. Hanging out and debating with a professor in their office. How do we improve this interaction? It really sets CMC apart. And yes, we're getting another thumbs up from Marcy on that one. Yeah, I think that is one of the delineating factors, right? It's that informal opportunities to get to know your faculty members a little bit better outside of the classroom, in between classes. It's hard to replicate that remotely because office hours happen, but they're not the same, right? I think sometimes students are finding, like, if I sign up for office hours, I have to have a particular thing. So when you get on the call, you're like, I just wanted to chat, right? Faculty welcome that, by the way, but it feels a little bit stilted in the initial phase. And so I think what we're finding is some of our faculty members have been great about joining in things that are not really necessarily about that. And so you'll hop on a Care Fellows program call and get a chance to interact with students in that way, so that they run into folks, so to speak. But I just would also say, I think advisors have been a little more active with students, so that for an advisor, you don't have to have a particular class question, right? You can just check in with your advisor. And I think one of the things that I would suggest to you is, if your students are saying that, that might be a good place to go. Like, hey, you had a professor last semester that you said you really liked. Like, you could absolutely reach out to them and just say, you want to just check in this semester. It doesn't have to be about your class, right? Our faculty would love to hear from the students they've taught before. And so kind of having them coached up to reach out, and they don't have to have a topic. They don't have to have an agenda. They just can say, I'm missing the contact. Like, what's going on? And they'll find those conversations will be welcome. So that's
the departments are trying to figure this out too, and it's such a good question. One of the strategies psychology has tried, for example, is to have these informal sessions where students can come on and just hear about the professor, right? And they've framed it as like my grad school journey. So how I thought about it, how I decided to go, what I learned along the way, the relationships I built. And so it's this kind of like way outside of who they are as a faculty member, but just to get to know what their process and stuff is. Sometimes our students don't know how to initiate these conversations either. They just want to get to know somebody a little better. One strategy that I talk to with my advisees sometimes is get in there and read a paper or two. All of that our faculty have published, they're all really accomplished scholars. And so when you read a paper that they've written and you shoot an email out that says, I was really interested in this particular paper that you wrote, and it made me think of this question, or I was connecting it back to this experience I had in high school. Do you think we could connect for 15 minutes at some point to just talk that through? They love that. And you start to really also in that process start to identify faculty that you think you could work well with, for example, for a thesis project or an independent study down the road, or those sorts of organic things. And so yeah, there are some strategies, but you're right, you don't bump into people in the dining hall right now, and that's hard. Yeah, Lisa, go ahead.
Got it. Okay. Hi. Thank you so much for doing this. I have an incoming freshman, so it's a little bit of a shift from the last question. And he's really appreciated the connections that the incoming freshmen are sort of doing online with each other.
Yeah.
And I think some of it is impromptu, that I don't know who's organizing it, and he's not figured that out. He just sort of waits for someone to say something is happening and does it, but it's really made an amazing difference. So I don't know if there's someone in charge of it, but I'd like to get that feedback to him that it really helped him, and he's looking forward to more of it. So he just doesn't seem to have an understanding of the hows and whys of what's going on with it.
Sure.
Or if it's Five College or just their school, he's a little clueless to that part, but that's also him. One thing I was wondering is just the transition. These kids, or at least I'm from Colorado, and our kids have been very locked down here in this state in comparison to some kids. And he's feeling a little overwhelmed of what it's going to be like to be set free in the fall. They're having a lot of his friends of just, some of them want to run rampant. He's not a rampant type, but I think, I have some concerns about the running rampant in the fall. I mean, they're all focused and motivated, but, I hope, do you think there'll be some kind of freshman trip? I know in the past, I think I've read that they've tried to do do you have any ideas about that yet? Or how to help these kids who've been very contained and had no steam going for a year, who are all going to want to or threaten to go nuts in the fall?
I'm laughing because Sharon and I have talked about this so many times. We're afraid we're going to bring him back and it's going to be just like this hedonistic semester of only live once every day.
And he has some friends who want to go off to other schools where the frats are big.
Right.
And that's all they're talking about. And it's just something in between, and some way to cope with these kids.
Yeah.
Who really I haven't seen anyone in almost a year. But, so I was hoping there might be a freshman trip, or when will you know? And is there some kind of plan that they are trying to connect to each other, the incoming students from the early decision kids? The president did a talk with them, the kids that were accepted ED. And that was the best thing that set of kids said they'd had.
Oh, good.
That they all met each other immediately, and it seemed to take off this level of anxiety of, oh my God, we're done with this process, but what do we do now? And so they've been looking for each other online, and as each group gets accepted, they're kind of figuring out what to do. Are they allowed to access some of the earlier things that students are doing on campus now, or is that only if you're currently enrolled?
Okay, so I'll try to hit all of those. So one, the connection part, so the student to student stuff, a lot of that is organic, like the students are out on social media and they're fighting each other. Once the regular decision classes have been announced and committed, so that will all happen at the end of this month, and then as we start to move forward, those connections will become much more formalized institutionally and also at the Five College level. So you can anticipate a ton of that heading into May and all through the summer of those sorts of connection points. The WOE trip is the freshman trip that you're talking about, the first year trip. We don't know about that. My gut says it's very unlikely. It's really hard to find places where we can go. We are still not in a position in LA County where I think that they're going to open up everything to that level. but we're keeping an eye on it for sure. And we're trying to think of other ways to replicate or at least get as close to that kind of experience as we can. One of the ideas we had thrown around not long ago was, we have a lot of outdoor spaces on campus and we have all the equipment that we send them off on low for, and let's pitch tents in the yards and, and in the fields and do some stuff. Like, there are ways to do it. So we'll figure some stuff out. The question about parties and social life and, they're released and then what? It's going to take a lot of management, but I will tell you, our student leaders, our older ones, are already talking this through. They are so excited to meet the new students. We will have 2 full classes that have never been here. And so they are already talking a lot about, like, how do we harness and amplify the things that are so important at this college? And the social life really does matter here. But how do we also do that in a way that is safe, where people aren't just losing their minds and all of that? So, Anne put in the chat a question about wedding party. So wedding party is this event. We put a big tent in the middle of the campus. And everybody dresses up. I mean, it's like you're going to a wedding. And then all through the week, there are these votes of, who's going to get married kind of thing. And then they have a wedding and then the reception, and it's a ton of fun. I mean, it's a really fun event. And so, yeah, we want to do things like wedding party, but we don't know what's going to be allowed and not allowed. So we are going to create social environment to the extent the county permits. And we're going to be really challenging our students to think about what it means to be responsible on this campus. What does it mean to be a part of this community? What are the values that we hold dear, and how do you as a student manage that and maintain that? I'm excited about it, to be honest, and we are eager to have them back. We miss the energy of the students running around here and doing their crazy stuff, and us yelling out our window to slow down on the skateboard and that kind of stuff. We miss them. So I think it will be okay. Sharon, go ahead. Sorry.
No, yeah, I would just add exactly a couple things I put in the chat too. That yes, Lisa, I think to your question, Beth Milev, who is on the call as well from our Soul Center for Student Opportunity, she flagged for me, and our admissions office indicated they are working with a class of 2025s. For example, last week I saw an email with our admissions office and our rec and fitness folks that they are opening up some sessions that are going on for our students, current students in the rec and fitness virtual arena for admitted students. They can come in and join in with those things. Beth talked about a bunch of other things that are available to the class of 2025 and more coming. They're getting postcards from Theo, who's the president's dog, kind of the campus mascot, so to speak. They call in snacks. So we're kind of embracing 2025s as soon as possible into that mix. I wanted to screen share. I think this might answer some of the questions too. Real quickly, people are asking appropriately, how do our kids know about these things? Lisa, your question a little bit about that first year class. We couldn't have, if we had voted, we couldn't have picked a better first year class president and class officers for a class of 24, because in the summer before they even got here, or they didn't get here, before they started their semester, they already started this virtual community, that first year class, and a lot of it was driven by the the first year class officers. And so I just want to give you a quick peek at here is an example of, so this is my email, but it's the student email that this whole inbox is all the same emails that your students get. Can you all see it? So if you look at this, DT and I get the student emails as well, so we know if what they're getting and what they're not getting and what we need to send out. So all these are student emails that they all get. And this one that I have pulled up is an example of one that the first year class president sent out just last week on the 14th to the class of 2024. And the class of 2023, 22, 21, all get emails like this weekly from their class presidents. And this is an example of Michael Giadinas, who is the outgoing class president for the first years. And basically there's a class cookbook, and this happens every week, new things. So there's a class cookbook where he's saying, submit your recipe and we'll put a class cookbook together. There's hometown submissions on Instagram where he's been doing with folks really great pictures. Send a picture of your hometown and where you like to be. And people are learning about people's hometowns. There's group chats that they have running, and that's just an example of one of those, for example. And we have our student government. They do a weekly email out to all students. Our ASCMC president does one, as well as Sandy, who is the topic that we're talking about, mental health and well-being. Sandy is one of our students on the student government, ASCMC, and she does a weekly email on Self-Care Sunday, and they have a program there. They have candle making workshop this coming week. This is March 1st. This one went out. I tried to pull up recent ones. A note of COVID, just talking about, grounding there, that it's a year into this COVID scenario. How are you doing with that? 35 coping mechanisms. And this is student to student stuff. She works with Jess Nielsen in our office. So it's vetted, obviously, a little bit that they're doing it together. But that's one example of messaging that's going from students to students about health and well-being. And this is just kind of to give you a quick look at what that looks like. Here's Michael's last week's class announcement with different things all together. Hometown camera winner, elections. So there's all of these. There's a lot of activity. And so Lisa, to your point about not sure how to connect in, that would be for this particular first year class, my suggestion would be normally I wouldn't say check your email, but in this particular era of what's going on, they really are putting all kinds of things in their emails. And Instagram, most of our students are on Instagram and they have class year followings, and we put all of our stuff on there, and students are finding out things through the Instagram feeds as well.
We're also tracking now who's signing up for things that we're hosting. So a lot of these are student hosted events, but we also have things that are being hosted through our Engage initiative that Beth is really critical in. And Beth, I think last we talked, we were at like 720 or so unique users.
Yep.
Okay, for that program, which for us is a good number, but then our immediate question is, where are the other 500, right? Where are the ones that we haven't touched yet? Who are they? And now we're doing, more directed outreach there. Beth, does that capture the next step of the strategy?
Yeah, that's great.
A good question in here about advisors and how long does it take generally for an advisor to get back in communication. Most faculty are able to respond within a business day, so about 24 hours on a business day. If it's over the weekend, it may wait until Monday. It's a little bit person to person, but I would say all are pretty responsive between 24 and 48 hours. In our office, we try to always respond within 24 hours, at least an acknowledgement of we received the email and we'll be back in touch with you soon. If a student isn't hearing from an advisor though over a prolonged period, then we encourage them to reach out to us so that we can just circle back and see what's going on there.
Questions that are not in the chat, you can raise your hand too. Or what are you hearing from your students at this point in time? I know that that bases a lot on class year. Yes, Anne, go.
Well, I mean, I guess I know that you can't be definitive, but is there anything about next year? I know there are lots of people wondering, shall we advise our kid who's been out for a year and a half to take a gap year, to delay their life for a little bit because it's hard to get a job? I mean, I think my son went to Sweden to try to have a normal, non-masked in-person situation. So I think he's not suffering in the same way I hear some of his friends. So are we giving them any hope for the future? I guess is the point.
Yeah, I think we are hopeful in a couple things in the last, I would say 2 weeks. The good news is, and we're going to be communicating this over the next couple of weeks too. In the last 2 weeks, the LA County transmission rate has remarkably improved. And so that is boding well for all of us. It went from 10,000 new cases a day down to like 1,000 new cases a day right now. And we're trying to get to 700 new cases a day to get to the next tier. So we're getting there in a pretty good way right now. And that I think certainly that will only, hopefully, they predict, there may be another spike or whatever, but I think we're seeing a leveling off. And hopefully over the summer, as the vaccines get more prevalent in LA County, we're hopeful that we will be back in fall. That's our plan. We are gearing up for it. We've been ready to go. What we're really gearing up right now is we're hoping that we can have double room capacity because that would allow us to have almost everyone, if not everyone, back on campus or in the local area. We usually have a group of students that want to live off campus anyway. And with that group, and we would keep our housing and election Kendry, if we could get clearance to do double room capacity, we would be golden and everybody would be back. If we have to do single room only, then we'll have to talk about a group of folks who we won't be able to house, but we'll start getting creative about what that could look like. And we may have, understandably, some students who don't really want to be back in the residence hall right away anyway. So it may not be too difficult, but we're hopeful to that. The vaccine is just on March 1st, yesterday was the first day that it opened to the higher education sector in LA County. Yes, John's thumbs upping that. So I got stabbed yesterday on my first injection. DT got one. We're all signing up for appointments. I had one canceled and then rescheduled. So the supply is still very difficult here. We get about 5,000 in the county a day for about 100,000 that need it. So it's tight, but Johnson & Johnson's coming out with one. So I think it's all starting to open up for us a bit to the point where we are very hopeful for fall. Yeah.
Valerie?
Hi, I just wanted to ask about the seniors, this year's seniors. It sounds like, and we're also grateful for hope that's coming for next year. But these guys have, been through the thick of it with a year plus of virtual learning. Is there anything that you have planned to make their graduation, their traditionally awesome spring, a little more special?
Yeah, I mean, we've been working with the seniors on that to try to figure out how to create some of those special memories, or at least some of what I'm hearing from seniors is they know that we can't create 100-day party, right? We can't do that for them right now, but we can capture and acknowledge how hard it is that they're not getting that and find other ways to celebrate the community and the memories and the other pieces of what it means to be a senior here. So last week, seniors received a box, and it was filled with things that were intended to be reminders and acknowledging what's going on for them. So for example, there was an envelope. Sharon, do you have that picture that Rob sent by any chance that you could find in our email? But it had, so for example, when you are missing AFT, right, on the box, and then you can open it up and there's a little package inside that is around AFT, the Rice Krispie treat and that kind of thing. We sent, all of the seniors got a half zip sweatshirt that has class of 2021 on it. Open when you miss AFT, open when you need caffeine for thesis, open when you are craving Collins cookies, open when you need to hydrate, when you need to relax, when you need a game night. And then we're trying to also just send emails to seniors, how are you holding up? We're planning Thesis Surge, which is a big event that we would normally host on campus where all of our seniors come together in one space and they plug away at thesis. And so we'll be doing that in April, and or actually late March, we'll be providing meals to all of them during that time. So there's a lot going on around it, but it's, and then graduation, right? So there'll be an announcement coming out, a letter within the next week or so that will have final plans for the end of the year and how we're going to celebrate our students' graduation and acknowledge, all of their many accomplishments. But Good. Well, thank you all for joining us. So good to see your faces. And Lisa, welcome to CMC. And we're excited to get to know your son over the next few years.
Thank you.
And again, if you have any follow-up questions or specific, things that you would like to discuss about your student, feel free to reach out to Sharon and I, and we'll be happy to be back in touch. Take good care, everyone.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, DT, for your time. I know you're so accessible and you're also so busy. So thanks for all that you do for our students and for our families. And we look forward to talking with you again.
Marcy, welcome to your son, Jad. He started with us in January from Occidental.
Oh, nice, right.
Thank you.
Yes, I will reach out and say a welcome to him. That's a good call. I don't know that the first year class gets those picked up mid-year on their list. So I will make sure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
We're excited to be joining the community.
Good, because even the school colors are better here.
Exactly. It's all good.
Yes.
Right?
Much better.
Oh, I'm blurry for some reason, but oh, there I am. Thank you guys so much for these. This is really helpful for all of us.
Of course, yeah, and especially since he's just joined us and his friend as well. If it would be helpful, DT and I would be happy to set up a chat with the two of them just to get to know them a bit.
That would be, that would be amazing. Thank you so much. I will let them know that.
Yes.
They are buddies. So great.
Perfect.
Well, thanks all of you. This is really helpful.
Take care.
Take care, folks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye all. Hope to see you on Thursday at our next session.